Comedy Film Nerds Podcast.
The next movie, Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman. Now, you got to see an advanced screening because it doesn't go wide until actually, I think, this week or possibly.
Well, I don't know. It had some kind of. I mean, I don't know why I was working at the Zanies in St. Charles, Illinois, and at the multiplex out there off of, whatever Highway 64 I was off of. There, it was playing, and I saw it, and I was like, I was like, wait, what's this? And I watched the trailer and the description. I was like, well, this sounds fascinating, and it really is. It's a very interesting movie.
What's the listed release date on it?
All right.
So, but one of the things.
Don't ask IMDb because.
Yeah, clearly they don't know what they're talking about.
They don't know what they're talking about.
What they're saying.
Now, this is based on.
It has a release date of October 13th.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe not.
Chris, you just don't know how to use your Fandango app.
Clearly, yeah. Well, one of them is lying to me. So one of the things I found interesting about this movie is that it's about the professor who also invented the lie detector and also invented Wonder Woman and the lasso that makes people tell the truth. So clearly life imitates art or art imitates life. So, but what was also interesting is this is set up as a biopic of how he created Wonder Woman. And William Marston's granddaughter, Chrissy Marston, publicly stated that her family completely rejects any claims made in the film and in no way support this work of fiction. So there is a disconnect from what is on the screen and what the family was envisioning.
That's puzzling to me. I mean, I don't know. Well, maybe it's not, because what happened. So what is, as this movie is. I'll just read you the IMDb description. It's the story of psychologist William Moulton Marston, the polyamorous relationship between his wife and his mistress, the creation of the beloved comic book Wonder Woman, and the controversy the comic generated. So he was living and like there's evidence to suggest that this. I think the family. I don't know. Maybe they just have shame. But he was married and then started. He brought this intern into the marriage, and they all started living together, and they had kids together. And of course, back in the 30s, it was like, whoa.
It's almost hard to believe the granddaughter had an issue with this.
Yeah,
I know. So, and he lost his job, and he did all this research, and then in the early, I didn't know this, but in the early issues, so the three of them experimented with, bondage and S&M, and as a psychologist...
They were sex hippies.
They were, sure, Chris, they were absolute sex hippies. But his whole thing was, like, being submissive to women helps understand their power and everything. That's sort of why he wrote Wonder Woman, was, like, showing this powerful woman. And in the early issues, apparently...
Already more insightful than 50 Shades of Grey.
Well, God. In the early issues... there was like bondage and stuff like that, and then some.
In the comic.
In the comic,
right? And
then of course some, Americans for Decency group, and that was played. The head of that was played by Connie Brighton. He comes under attack and all this stuff. So it really, I thought it was pretty fascinating.
Well, I liked in the trailer when they said no one is ever going to publish this.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting considering. Wonder Woman came out last summer, and the impact that it had, and we talked about it on this show of how it was so cool to see a female superhero depicted this way, and she got to do all these amazing things, and where it came from and the history of it, and all the performances were pretty decent. The director is Angela Robinson, who, she directed Herbie Fully Loaded. Like she hasn't.
She doesn't have a long page.
Well. It's not, but it's a lot of TV.
Oh, okay.
And she did
so
Debs,
she's a TV director.
and she's a TV director. So.
Oh, she did Debs?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She did True Blood. She did some episodes of The L Word, and.
Actually, she sounds like she would be the perfect director for this movie.
Yeah, she really is. I mean, it's a fantastic film, I thought, and it's really interesting. I'm so puzzled by the granddaughter. I guess maybe I'm not, but I don't know why the granddaughter would just totally disavow. All of this, when there's like photos and historical evidence to back up this relationship between the three of them.
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh no, I'm dying to see the movie. I've been always, intrigued by this. I always knew sort of this backstory, and I've always
well, the filmmaker also responded when I kind of asked that question too about, and she said, "I think there's a lot of facts that are indisputable about the Marstons, and I feel that there's a lot that's open to interpretation. So as a filmmaker, this was my interpretation of their story." So there was clearly some liberties taken with the story, and there was clearly some stuff she was basing it on, known information.
My guess is the facts are they all three lived together and they had a bunch of children together.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some scenes.
Willy-nilly.
I didn't say that, Chris. That was your interpretation of it.
That is my interpretation of it. They were doing it willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly. So that, I think, but then there's some scenes where they're sort of like dressing up and tying each other up and stuff like that. That's probably my guess is where the filmmaker took liberties.
And then the granddaughter might not have approved.
Yeah, it's just like any kid doesn't want to imagine their grandparents having sex. I don't know. So
bondage sex.
Bondage sex. So they're just like, nope, I don't think this happened. It's all a lie. Everything's a lie. But it was really interesting. And